The Oscars. For a long time, the Oscar ceremony has been a rather controversial one, where for the most part, the winners weren't really deserved and artistic abilities weren't prioritized. And that's why I've never really been an advocate for the Oscars. The only memories I have from the annual ceremony is when Bong Joon-ho won for Parasite and gave all his praise to Martin Scorsese.
Our great Martin Scorsese.
What a gesture, by the way. And when this happened.
Oh, wow!
But this year is different. It's been a magnificent year of movies. I mean, look at that. And that's why the nominees are stacked. This year, I've decided that I'm going to stay up all night to watch the Oscars for the first time live. And I thought, why not make a video about my predictions and who I think is gonna win? And who I think got snubbed of a nomination. So, first of all, we have actor in leading role. For the longest time, I had Cillian Murphy locked in the bag for this award. And I might still do, but after watching Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, my mind is kind of all over the place. I just gotta say, that performance is amazing. The way he plays this stubborn, unlovable, the unpopular teacher, and the way he changes throughout the story is obviously because of a phenomenal script, but at the same time, Paul Giamatti delivers something special. He delivers this subtle performance where you kind of have to read off his body language to kind of understand where his mind is at, but you don't have to do it manually. You just understand through his body language what he's thinking about. It's just an amazing film, and I wouldn't get mad if he got away with this award. But the same can be said about Cillian Murphy. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors, and with Oppenheimer, he finally got the chance to take on a lead role in a Christopher Nolan film, and he absolutely took it with both hands. It's like he was born to play this role, you know, he mimicked all of the mannerisms, and you could feel what he was thinking about all the time. Same with Giamatti, as I mentioned earlier. And what I find interesting about the Oppenheimer movie is that he kind of goes through these 3 different stages. You know, at first he's kind of worried about the consequences if the bomb gets made, and he kind of plays this anxious and kind of humble scientist that doesn't really want to get involved. But then when he kind of accepts the role, he kind of switches to this subtle arrogance to him. And in the final stage, when he realizes what is done and the aftermath of his work, he's kind of riveted with the realization for what is done. He realizes fully what is done and he feels responsible, and I mean that makes sense, and I think Cillian captures that emotion and those 3 emotions perfectly. This might sound far-fetched, but I do think Cillian Murphy's performance actually is a bit overshadowed because of the grand scale of the film itself. You know, all the music, the fast-paced cuts between all the scenes, there's so much going on. Compared to the Holdovers, where the characters actually get to breathe, Cillian doesn't get that because of the big project. But even with that disadvantage, Cillian does an excellent job. I haven't really seen American Fiction or Rustin, so I can't really speak on those, but my odd one out is definitely Bradley Cooper. Now, was his performance bad? No. But was he worthy of a Oscar nomination? No. Now look, I think the whole thing about Bradley Cooper directing and acting is incredibly inspiring. That by itself is an astonishing accomplishment. When I read about that, I was very excited to watch the movie and see how he would perform, but I was left disappointed. Anyways, I'm going to speak about Maestro more in depth later on in the video, so I'm not going to speak too much about that now, but I don't think Bradley Cooper deserves this nomination. I just think he tried to do too much, which kind of made it feel like I had to like his performance, if that makes sense. It didn't feel authentic, it didn't stick with me, and I haven't thought about Maestro or his performance ever since I watched it, and that says a lot. However, performance I have thought about since I watched it is Nicolas Cage's performance in Dream Scenario. I think he delivers one of, if not his best performance till this date. And if you haven't seen this movie, I would highly recommend it. My pick is between Paul Giamatti and Cillian Murphy, and it's, you know, it's really hard. I wouldn't be mad if any one of them won it, but if I had a gun to my head, Cillian, actor in a supporting role. Now, straight away, I do think Robert Downey Jr. is going to win this. Do I agree? I don't know. I'm going to be a bit honest here. I wasn't that impressed by Robert's performance. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was good, and I'm not going to be like very mad if he wins it. I just don't think it's fair to say that he deserves it over the other nominees here by a mile, and that I just don't agree with that. I do think Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things was better, and that's my pick for the best supporting role. Now, of course, they are completely different performances, but that performance, oh my god, it was hilarious. It's just incredibly funny, and it just showed his range as an actor. Once again, I haven't seen American Fiction, so I'm not going to speak about Sterling K. Brown, but my odd one out is, and I hate to say this, it's Robert De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon. I love Robert De Niro. He's probably my favorite actor. Plays in so many good films, and he has so many good roles, and he puts in a good performance in every single one of those films. He has so much range, it's insane. But I just think that his performance in this movie wasn't anything special. I think anyone else could play that role. I can't say the same thing about Mark Ruffalo, for example. I would rather have Dominic Sessa's performance in The Holdovers over Robert De Niro. That performance was his debut, and I'm just shocked over the realization when I saw that. It felt like he's been acting for 10 years, dominating the screen with a raw and authentic performance that just made me feel like I'm right there with him. He was playing this troubled kid, and his relationship on screen with Paul Giamatti is it's insane. But yeah, my pick for best supporting actor is Mark Ruffalo. Actress in the leading role. Controversial take, but I don't think Lily Gladstone has this completely locked in the bag. It might just sound like I'm trying to be different, but I'm not. I think her performance is great. I think she has this subtlety to her performance, and although you don't have to have this big performance to be appreciated, I still don't think her stoic performance is that great. I'm not blown away. And look, I'm not taking anything away from her performance. I just think it's a bit overhyped, and I'm kind of confused over all of the media attention she's getting in comparison to these other great nominees. Emma Stone, Sandra Hüller, even Carey Mulligan in Maestro. Even though Maestro wasn't that great of a film, I think Carey Mulligan's performance was excellent. I haven't watched Nyad, so I can't really speak on Annette Bening. All of these 4 women deserves it, in my opinion. I just think it's kind of disrespectful to the 3 other nominees to say that Lily Gladstone has this in the bag 100%. That's all. I think her performance is great, don't get me wrong. Sandra Hüller, she's spectacular in Anatomy of a Fall, because you don't trust her character. You don't know if she's done it or not, and that's very hard to achieve as an actor, to kind of play both sides. Do I trust her? Do I not? Is she guilty? Is she innocent? I don't know. She's playing on both sides, and nothing is giving away, so you don't actually get an answer. So you start looking at her eyes and her body language, and you try to analyze to actually unlock the character. There's like a mystery surrounding the character, and I think to portray that as an actor, to play both sides, are very hard. For me, my pick is Emma Stone's in Poor Things. Her performance in this movie is her best. To play kind of like this Frankenstein's monster experiment, especially in a Yorgos Lanthimos film, where it's pretty weird. And the whole premise of her character is essentially a baby in a 35-year-old woman's body. Like, how do you even prepare for that role? What source material do you look at? Like, to play a baby in a grown woman's body and make me forget that Emma Stone is the actor is just an accomplishment by itself. That's when you know it's a good actress. It's something we haven't seen before, and I can imagine that preparing for this role was difficult. I'm not going to pick an odd one out, because I think all of these 4 women were amazing, and I think all of them have a shot at the award. But if I were to pick a snub, I would probably pick Penelope Cruz in Ferrari. I think her performance was very good as well, but I don't know who she's replacing. Actress in a supporting role, Davine Joy Randolph is my pick. If you haven't noticed already, I do think The Holdovers is a great movie, and Davine, she's great. She delivers a loud yet quiet performance, and I think that's in itself a very difficult task to achieve. You can feel her trauma and her sadness through the screen, through the character, but at the same time she's kind of this anchor point for Paul and Dominic's character. She's like this light for them. I would like to make an argument for Emily Blunt, because I think her performance is a bit underrated. She doesn't have that much screen time, and I think with the amount of screen time she has, she does an excellent job. She blows me away in the sequences she's in, especially at the end of the film. The interrogation scene alone, when the song Kitty Comes to Testify is in the background. Goosebumps. That song is perfect. It's maybe my second favorite after Can You Hear the Music, but that song is the second best song on the Oppenheimer score. Animated feature film. I have only watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse from this list, and yeah, I know I have to watch The Boy and the Heron. I'm sorry. And I know that's bad, but I want to speak on this movie either way. I watched Across the Spider-Verse in IMAX, and it's one of my favorite cinema experiences ever. It's just a massive accomplishment in animation. I mean, it's beautiful to look at, and I just gotta give props to the animators, man, because I can't really comprehend the amount of effort that went into this film. I'm not just going to talk about the technical aspect, because I think this sequel kind of builds on the story. It's a very good story, and it develops the characters even more. And of course, the music in this, oh, Metro Boomin cooked. Cinematography. I haven't watched El Conde, so I'm not going to speak about it. I feel like I've been saying that for every category now. I need to do better for next year's Oscars. Here's where I'm giving the props to Maestro. I do think the cinematography in Maestro was good. Very good. Beautiful to look at. I'm not against this being on the list. And I think really like the box look that they went for, the old retro box look that Saltburn also went for, I do think that elevates the cinematography. I think it's beautiful. However, the three others are my main picks, and I really can't differentiate between them. I think this is the hardest category. One day, I think Rodrigo Prieto wins this, but then I'm like, Hoyte van Hoytema, have this in the bag. His work in Oppenheimer is absurdly good. It's more like a gigantic cinematic experience, but it's simple at the same time, even though it's not simple, but it looks simple, which makes it very good. Then you have Poor Things, which is more of a experimental approach with the cinematography, which I do appreciate. I think it's unique, and there's so many creative angles and lenses and setups. It's beautiful as well, obviously. In this category, I'm not mad if any of these three wins. I'm not gonna be mad if Maestro wins either. Can be any one of them, but I do think Hoyte van Hoytema is gonna win this. And my pick is... it's hard. Probably gonna be Hoyte. It's beautiful. Costume design. I do think Barbie's gonna win this, and I wouldn't be too much against it, but I would say it's probably a bit generic and boring. And if the Academy really wanted to go deep with this category, they would pick Poor Things. I think it was Thomas Flight who talked about this, but the way you design the clothes in these kind of crazy adventure movies should be appreciated. You don't have any reference material to go by. You essentially have to pick the clothes based on the universe that you yourself has created, which means you have to be even more creative. And Poor Things is absurd, so that can't really be an easy task. And with Barbie, you kind of have the costumes already, if that makes sense. That's why I think it would be very cool if Poor Things won this award, but it's probably going to be Barbie, but I wouldn't like make a fuss about it. I think it's okay. Directing. This one is hard. Yet again. I just want to point out before we continue, I am glad that it's hard. I'm glad that it's no clear-cut winner in each category. It just shows how many great movies were made last year. Christopher Nolan is going to get his first directing award for Oppenheimer. And if Oppenheimer was just completely excluded from this year's list, I would have gone for Yorgos. I want both to win it, but that it doesn't work that way. And that's why I'm edging more towards Nolan, because I think he deserves an Oscar, and he's essentially the guy who made me fall in love with cinema. He was the guy to make me fall in love with movies, like properly. I've always loved movies growing up. He was the first guy where I kind of, after the movie, I was like, okay, who made this? Who is the creator behind this movie? And then I checked out all his other films and I fell in love. I personally think he should have had plenty already, and I don't like to give out legacy awards, and obviously it's not a legacy award. I think he actually deserves it as well, but I really want Yorgos as well to win it, which makes it hard. Documentary, feature film. I haven't watched any of these, so I'm just going to skip them. Documentary, short film. Again, I haven't watched them, so film editing. For film editing, I'm going to pick Oppenheimer. I think the way Jennifer Lame edited that to make such a complex narrative so easily understandable for a mass audience is incredibly difficult. When you just zoom out and look how the film is set up structurally, with the back and forth sequences and the black and white segments and the color sequences, the jump between timelines and so many dialogue scenes. I think the ability to kind of take all of that raw footage and turn it into a film that is Oppenheimer is just monumental. I think it's incredible. There is so much story and she just lays it out seamlessly. The Trinity test scene alone, I mean, that's perfect editing. That scene is so tense and I almost had a heart attack. twice in the theater. I do think Killers of the Flower Moon did a great job as well. I mean, that movie is 4 hours almost, and it felt like 1 hour, and that's all down to great editing and pacing. I don't really have an odd one out for this category, but I would say my snub is The Killer by David Fincher. I think that's just the pinnacle of film editing, and I really can't understand how that's not nominated. International feature film. This is probably going to be the zone of interest, but it's not my pick at all. Although there were certain qualities about that film that I can appreciate, I think it's way overhyped. The sound design and score is magnificent in terms of making you feel uncomfortable and uneasy, while subtly touching upon the horror that we as the audience know is happening in the background. But other than that, I think parts of the execution for this film was just bad. I think it was boring, it was very bland, and although there are some powerful scenes in the movie, they just don't stick with me. I think it's unorganized, and I didn't like the director's approach with, the static shots and the cinematography. I can understand why he went with this approach. I can understand why this movie gets the award, but personally, I don't rate it as high as others. And that's okay. It just wasn't for me. My pick is Society of the Snow. The cinematography is crisp and beautiful to kind of juxtapose the horror that happens throughout this film. And the acting is so authentic, it's almost like you're right there with them. The fact that this is based on a true story, I think it would just be a phenomenal scenario if they won. Makeup and hairstyling. I do think Maestro is going to win this. And I'm actually rooting for Maestro to win this. It might seem like I'm a Maestro hater, but I'm not. The makeup and hairstyling in this is amazing. I mean, just look at Bradley Cooper. That looks so real. Again, I'm not mad if Society gets away with this award as well, because the effort in that film is also incredible. I mean, come on, look at this. Music, original score. For me, it's no debate. It's going to be Oppenheimer, and that's my pick as well. Can You Hear the Music solidifies itself as the clear winner, just that song alone. Like, you could erase all the other songs and, you could just have that, and they would still win. I listen to it almost every day, and it's perfect. Like, how do you even make that? I actually watched a breakdown from Ludwig Göransson on how he made it, and it was actually way simpler than I thought. But come on, if this doesn't win, it's the biggest Oscar snub of all time. I mean that with no disrespect to the other nominees. I do think the score in Poor Things is very effective to the film, and obviously that's what a score is. And I do think it kind of accompanies the movie and its vibe and its weirdness. And Killer of the Flower Moon as well. It's perfect for the movie. There's nothing against those scores, but come on, Ludwig Göransson. It's just, he has such a bright career in front of him, and he's going to be like up there with John Williams and Hans Zimmer. Music, original song. What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish. I think it's no debate. I think it's gonna win. It's beautiful. Yeah, nothing else to say really. Go listen to it and you'll understand. Best Picture. A lot of great picks, but why is Maestro here? It just annoys me. Not because of the movie itself, but just that it's nominated for so many things when it doesn't deserve to be. That's where my anger and frustration is from. But yeah, Oppenheimer is going to win. It's the movie I watched the most last year. I love it. I watched it 3 times, I think, and considering the kind of context of the movie, it's like a biography about a scientist, and it's so many dialogue scenes, and I watched it 3 times, which totaled to 9 hours, and I still love it. Come on, it's Oppenheimer. I wouldn't be mad if the Holdovers actually managed to sneak away with this, because that movie's phenomenal, but it's going to be Oppenheimer. Production design, Barbie. I mean, look at this. Animated short film. I haven't watched any of these, so yeah, live action short film. Same with this one. Sorry guys. Sound. I think the zone of interest gets this. Even though I was not particularly a fan of this movie, I do think the sound design was amazing. It's horrifyingly good. Yeah, I can't really describe it. You just gotta watch the movie and form your own opinion, and maybe you'll love the movie more than I do, but the sound is spectacular, and you can't deny that. I want to make an argument for Oppenheimer, because I think the use of no sound in the Trinity test and when he's kind of in this press conference room, I think that's just awesome. The use of no sound is loud, and they're perfectly executed for those scenes. I also think Ferrari should have been nominated for this category. I can't believe the Academy watched that movie and thought, yeah, nah. The Killer as well. I mean, listen, just look at this. Whatever. Visual effects. Godzilla -1. Do I need to say more? Writing. Best adapted screenplay. For best adapted screenplay, I'm going Poor Things. I watched an interview with Yorgos Lanthimos on how he met the author Alasdair Gray of the 1992 novel, and how he had a friend who was a big fan of Gray, and then he read Poor Things and went to meet Gray because he was so captured by it. Then he got his blessings to make the film, and it turned into something magnificent. Writing. Original screenplay. I really would like to see the Holdovers get some awards. I think this is the perfect one for them. Although the story isn't something new or that we haven't seen before in terms of style and narrative, I do think it offers something unique in some ways. It's probably going to turn into a comfort movie for me that I'm going to watch over and over and over. It reminds me of Good Will Hunting, a movie I hold close to my heart. The characters are written so well, and the story happens in a small town in a short amount of time. But it manages to capture me, and it's a beautifully written script. Simple, yet very effective. And it's these kind of movies that I love, because they're so close to real life. They are not like your Oppenheimer, who is like big and monumental and has to change the world. But everything doesn't have to be that. You know, it's down to earth. And there are hundreds of stories out there in the world happening every day that are similar. And that's what I love about movies. It's a depiction from real life stories. These were my Oscar predictions and picks. The award ceremony is on Sunday night, and I'm very excited to see this live. If you want to see some early predictions for the 2025 Oscars, you can check out my review on June Part 2, because Denis and the rest of the cast is sweeping all of the awards next year.